Summit 2024 here in Casablanca, Morocco. And of course, we've been having a lot of informative, engaging discussions on how to boost outputs for finance in Africa. And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is agriculture, and in particular, AgTech, so agricultural technology, and using that to transform food systems and agricultural systems in Africa. My name is ODDIRI. I host the Global Business Report on Arise News, and I'm very happy to be moderating what promises to be a very good panel that's going to be having a lot of discussions around how to use agriculture to expand that. So we're going to have a panel discussion. Before we have that panel discussion, we're going to get a presentation from one of our experts. Okay, see more folks coming in. That's great. That's great. So, and then after that, we're going to have a one-on-one with Mr. MANSSOURI. Looking very more forward to that from the Food and Agricultural Organization. So, to kick things off, let's get our presentation first to lay the groundwork for the conversation that we are about to have. So, let me call up Mr. Hamza CHAHAM, who is a co-founder of SOWIT.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. As we are discussing today, the main challenge we are facing here in Morocco is the productivity of our farmers. Wheat being farmed in Morocco traditionally over 3.5 million hectares, and as we are talking, not more than 2 million hectares have been actually farmed. It shows multiple challenges we are currently facing, not only climate change that is really preventing farmers from sowing and from considering there is an opportunity for them to grow a harvest, but also many other bottlenecks that we have all around. Of course, machinery, quality seeds and inputs, expertise, information, and of course, last but not least, financing. At SOWIT, as the co-founder and co-CEO of SOWIT, we actually built a solution that helped unlocking the potential of African farmers by debottlenecking African farming, using finance as the critical instrument in order to deliver farmers all they need for them to achieve a profitable harvest. The opportunity in Africa is huge. If we talk, of course, about Morocco alone, for example, for wheat, 3.5 million hectares of wheat, representing more than 4 billion of loan value every day in terms of OPEX in order for these farmers to be able to cultivate. But if we talk about the continent, it's a 1 trillion opportunity, not only because Africa, in terms of growth, will need to feed its 1.3 billion people by 2030, but also because agriculture is the largest driver of the African economy. If you see all the green revolutions that happened in the past, if you see the example of India, there couldn't be an industrialization and an emergence of a country without agriculture being a massive driver, not only in rural areas, but also in providing massive workforce to the urban areas and making the country able to afford for its own production and its own food. As a matter of example, Africa imports 50 billion of food product today, whereas it has a massive potential in terms of production. If you take the cereal farmer in Morocco, it will produce 2 tons per hectare. If you take the Indian, it will produce 4 to 5. It means there is massive room for improvement, of course, if we consider comparable situations in terms of climate, but also in terms of environment, soil, and so on. The objective and what we try to build with our partners, and especially IFC, is to be able to combine finance and technology in order to debottleneck agriculture. Finance and technology are very important, not only because technology enables, from one hand, to de-risk farm financing, because you have a good credit scoring, you know the farmers, you know the land, you know the surface, you know the historical yield. So you know what is the ability of this farmer to pay back. But along the way, it's much more important as it helps securing the production all across the season. Not only helping in getting the right insurance in terms of coverage, in getting the right inputs in terms of quality for farmers to get adapted inputs to their soil or to their crops, but also in terms of getting advisory and access to market. Finance is definitely the master bottleneck for African farmers, as it helps unlocking all the others that are then enabling farmers to double their productivity. And that's what we actually did. Last year, our farmers increased their net income by almost 60% while having zero default on all the farmers that took loans in order to finance their season. It's not only money, but it's money that unlocks all the possibilities for farmers to upgrade their crop management and to achieve a better performance. This was achieved through a very comprehensive approach that was built within the AAAP program with the IFC in order to be able not only to secure the de-risking of the farms for all the financial institutions that are partners, but also for all the other stakeholders within the value chain. Suppliers want to be paid at the end of the seasons. Off-takers want to be delivered. But also to make this de-risking approach a way to secure money with low collateral, as it is their risk on a daily basis for farmers to get access to financing and to perform better at the end of the day, being able to pay everyone back and to make everyone happy across the value chain, creating values all across the different components, from the farmers to the suppliers to the off-takers, machinery and service producers that are then enabled to seize an opportunity that is de-risked and providing them with much more. This model has been built because technology has been a critical instrument in scoring farmers, securing harvest, being able to plan logistics, being able to track farm operation. It has been a critical component in assessing risk on a daily basis and then being able to trigger corrective plans before it is too late for farmers to adopt and adapt to the current situations and to be able to produce with the right productivity at the end of the year. Last year was the third worst year according to the central bank in Morocco in terms of wheat performance. No more than 3 million tons. Morocco is used to produce 6-7 million tons, and in good years up to 11-12. But still last year's, all the farmers working with the aggregation programs were able to pay back, but also to secure comfortable margins because they were able to take best possible decision at every critical step of the season. This is, of course, possible by data. Data is here the main lever we're gonna use because we have a good understanding about the weather forecast, good understanding about the soil, about the ability of the farmer to produce, tracking of the operation and equipment, live data enabling to secure on a daily basis every single operations, making every single operation profitable for the farmer and then also for all the other stakeholders, but also by an AgTech agents and an agents that we are managing on the ground that is digesting this data on behalf of the farmers. Farmers in rural areas, small-scale farmers, are illiterate when it comes here to the situation in Morocco, tend to be illiterate. You need to digest this data for them. You need to enable farmers to have this psychological chance in order to adopt new practices. And this is only possible if you build human trust, if you have agents that are trained, skilled to help farmers with the delivery, to help farmers with the operations, setting their machinery, or to help them jump on digital tools in order to enable them to then track their operations and improve them on a daily basis. Without data and technology, there couldn't be smart aggregation, there couldn't be risk mitigation, and then no way to unlock this productivity for farmers. As a matter of example, this is data from last year over which we are tracking the P&L, the performance of the farmer, and we see that even in a drought season, our farmers succeed making much more, as you can see here, because we are able to subscribe an insurance that has a coverage that is higher because of the data we have and because of the product we're building with our partners. So as you can see, not only they make the green more income because we are optimizing every single operation. Why fertilizing when you don't have any climate potential this year? There is no need to waste any input if there is no capacity to deliver yield. And then the insurance here, as you see, and this is in a drought season, meaning worst case. And in a good case, when rain is there, we still have an increased margin because then we will help farmers investing in quality fertilizer inputs for them to leverage this existing positive weather in order to get best possible performance. The bottom line is that whatever the climate, whatever the weather, whatever the situation, our farmers perform better than other farmers, simply because with data, we are able in a certain way to adapt their practices to every single situation on the field. In Morocco, our objective is, in terms of financial potential, is $260 million of loan value. We are mainly focusing in the Fes-Meknes and Gharb region. These are the only regions that performed well in our climatic risk studies. We cannot go everywhere because the regions and the farmers to be eligible need to comply with a certain criteria, among which are the type of soil or the weather and so on. But still, it leaves us with more than 500,000 hectares that could be addressed out of around 2.5 million hectares of wheat in Morocco. And we're also targeting other crops to also be orchestrated this way for other farmers to benefit from the aggregation. This result in being able to trigger an opportunity for the full value chain. These farmers that were unbanked, considered as not solvable by the suppliers, not considered by the off-takers because they do not produce the right quality, become commercial farmers, viable for all the value chains and generating income for everybody across the chain. This partnership that was built here with all the value chain players, from the financial institutions, El Amana Microfinance or Crédit du Maroc, IFC, that was instrumental to build this smart aggregation concept, all the other components of the value chain, is a partnership also that is contractual. The objective is, before starting the season, to have fixed parameters to deploy the season, meaning the price the farmers are going to sell with is fixed, the price they're going to buy their input is fixed, the price they're going to repay the bank is fixed. It means the farmers do not need to talk a financial language. The farmers knows that by producing 3 tons, 1 ton goes to pay back and 2 tons goes to his or her pocket. And I think it's very important to transform these financial instruments into concepts that are simple for farmers. At the end of the day, we deliver all they need across the season, and they reimburse with their production with no cash in their pocket across the entire season until the production is in the trucks of the off-taker. Thank you.
Round of applause again for Mr. Hamza Shazam for the presentation. Now, we're going to get into our panel discussion. So I'm going to introduce each of our panelists to come on stage as we get this discussion going. One round of applause first for Mr. Aliou MAIGA, who's the Africa Director, IFC, Regional Director, of course, for West and Central Africa. Good morning to you, sir. You're very welcome. Yes, all the way at the end. Up next, Dr. Gehan Saleh, who is an advisor, Office of the Prime Minister for the Arab Republic of Egypt. You're very welcome. Okay. Up next, let's have a warm welcome for Mr. Nabil TAHARI, Managing Director at IB Holdings. You're very welcome, sir. And another player in the agricultural sector that's worked with the IFC is Abrhame ENDRIAS from Ethiopia, Director General at LERSHA. You're very welcome. All right, everyone should have their microphones. Mr. MAIGA, let me start with you, and we'll work our way all the way up. So we've seen the presentation from the co-founder, CEO of SOWIT. I wanted to ask, from your vantage point, how financial institutions, can key in to leverage on, I guess, what we've seen there to be able to scale this financing for players in the agricultural sector to get the kind of output that SOWIT is talking about.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all the audience. My name is Aliou MAIGA, and I cover the financial sector for IFC in Africa, but my background is really in technology. I'm an IT professional. This is what I did for 10 years before moving to management consulting. And then I came to IFC, and even at IFC, I started in the IT as IT project manager. So as a management consultant, I used to pretend that I solve people's problem. Okay. More seriously, but as an IT professional, I do solve people's problem. That's what IT is for. You help others make their businesses efficient and productive and ultimately profitable. I'm mentioning this because the only way Africa can transform its agriculture, given the level of fragmentation, 80–90% of agriculture in Africa is done by smallholder farmers, between 1 to 5 hectares. There is no way any system can manage it without digitizing it. It's just impossible. So innovation and technology are the basis for doing anything that could transform Africa's agriculture. And I also believe that, I mean, this is a quote, but you know, innovation comes from changing fields. Sometimes the people who are the expert in the area, I mean, in a sector, are so focused on being expert that they don't maybe connect to other areas that can help solve the sector's problem. So connecting the dots is absolutely critical. And I believe agriculture problem has been seen as, you know, economics and research problem, but ultimately it's just efficiency, productivity, and logistics problem. And unless you connect all those areas, it's very hard to solve the issue. And then, of course, you know, financing is the most important way to influence people's behavior. When you owe, you know, a bank money, you try to behave, right? Because you have to pay your money back. If you don't, they go after you. So, in a very positive sense, is that finance can, you know, you can help your client and customers become stronger, become more resilient, and become more profitable through finance, because the relationship of, you know, between a financier and its clients is two ways. You know, you provide money, the client, you know, succeed, pay you back, and both of you grow together. So that, you know, relationship allows you to actually manage a lot of improvement in sectors. I say all of this because we spend a lot of time trying to solve development challenges, which is our mandate, okay? And sometimes we talk a lot about financing and money, but financing and money don't result in anything if you don't have actual solutions. So spending time thinking about solutions that can actually solve problems, and then you can put financing behind it. In the past 2 years, we spent a lot of time with the team here and also in other part of the world to develop a solution that we call the AAP. We call it Africa Agriculture Accelerator Program. And the choice of a name is very important because we don't have time, okay? It's a very old problem, 60, 70-year problem, but we don't have time. We have to go very fast. And we develop a solution, we work with a few partners, you know, to build it. At the heart of it are AgTech companies. And those companies has been in the, I would say, in the fringes for the past 10 years. I remember the first one we tried to finance was 10 years ago almost. This was Babangona. It didn't work out. They were a startup. But today, you fast forward, they service 100,000 farmers. They produce 700,000 tons of maize in Nigeria. They have the largest tech team in Nigeria, 80 people just working on technology, even though their business is agriculture. And in that period, they've become strong enough to develop solutions that, you know, can solve the problem. What they lack is the resources to scale up, the resources to connect with financial sector so that they can bring the farmer they help into financing, but also the resources to expand, you know, beyond their own borders. And this is what IFC is bringing. It's really to put our resources, both knowledge, financial, behind AgTechs, and connect them to our network of financial institutions. We have the largest networks in Africa. I think today we have probably 150 plus banks that we work with. Every country we have 5 to 10 banks that we, you know, who are our clients. And I think the combination of those three, the AgTech companies, the financial, you know, institutions, and IFC, and all the players across the value chain, we are bringing them together so that we can provide a holistic solution to a farmer where essentially the farmer become a landlord, okay? He has a land, somebody provide the service, at the end of the day, somebody harvests, and he gets his profit after paying back the financial institution. So that's really what we are trying to achieve. I will stop there.
Thank you so much. Dr. Sal, let me come to you. So you've seen the presentation from a player in the sector. We've heard from the IFC that's trying to finance the value chain. From your perspective, representing a sovereign nation of Egypt, and you also consume a lot of wheat, like Morocco with the presentation there. How can sovereign nations like yourself key into these initiatives in order to boost their agricultural output from a technology standpoint?
Thank you very much for the panel, and thank you very much for the question. Actually, I enjoyed the presentation very much, although it was very quick, but I would like to look at more details, but it's really interesting giving those solutions and models. And let me start actually by, again, assuring that Egypt, like other African countries, agriculture is a very important sector in Egypt. It contributes about 11.8% in the GDP, and about 28% of employment is coming from agriculture, out of which 55% is for Upper Egypt. Most of them, there are small farmers. So therefore, a lot of policies have to be initiated in order to integrate the system. At the same time, facing many challenges coming from climate change, water insecurity, and also the increase in population. So all these challenges, they should lead to more policies that are more smart in order to increase the productivity and increase the efficiency of the land and the water irrigation. Now, such initiatives or such models actually are, in order to adapt them, they have to be keyed in the strategies and the vision of the country. And for that, actually, we have several strategies, national strategy for sustainable agriculture 2030, that takes into consideration the main pillars is technology and efficiency of productivity. So in that case, once we have models or new ideas for that, that should be keyed in because it is the main pillar of the strategy. We also have the platform. We had also a program for the climate adaptation, which again takes into consideration the water insecurity and the urbanization problem. So solutions like that takes a priority in that kind of strategy. In COP27, we had an initiative of NUWAFI, which is a platform that takes into consideration the programs for agriculture and the programs for the climate change affecting agriculture, and try to engage the blended finance from the development agencies in order to go for such models as well. In addition to that, also the Ministry of Agriculture, because of the importance of the data, we have what's called the smart card for the farmers, which actually sets a database for all the small farmers where we can get in all the data and information about what they produce and the challenges they have and the system of the irrigation, the need for fertilizers. And for that kind of database, we can actually give the support either from a subsidy from the government for the farmers in terms of technology or in terms of fertilizers or in terms of the purchase of the good quality of seeds. So for the government of Egypt, usually taking care or taking into consideration the problem that we have and the importance of agriculture sector, especially that when we started our structure reform program, agriculture sector was one of the main sectors and one of the main pillars. So such initiatives and such models are keyed in the policies. And for that, it's a priority. So once we have these models, then we start to channel the funds or to channel the subsidies and the support from the government. I'll stop.
Thank you so much. And thanks for bringing up the issue of climate. And Hamza also did the same thing in his presentation. We were looking at the most recent GDP figures for South Africa. In the third quarter, it grew by 0.3% annualized from 0.4 in the second quarter. But on a quarter-on-quarter basis, it actually contracted by 0.3%. One of the reasons for that was because the agricultural sector contracted by 28%. And when we looked into why that is, it was because of adverse weather effects dragging down the agricultural sector, which of course had an impact on GDP. So thanks for raising that. Mr. TAHARI, I do want to get your thoughts on, from the finance side, the best possible collaborations that can take place to scale agricultural output with technology, of course.
Bon, Nabil TAHARI.
My name is Nabil TAHARI. I'm working for the African Bank for Development for over 20 years, so I have a banking background. And to be honest with you, it's the agriculture is a very attractive sector, and at the same time, it's very risky. It's a vital sector. It's the main source of GDP in our countries, but still, it's a very risky sector. It's affected by climate change. The fragmentation of the farmers is unfortunately a drawback, and the business models that are presented need to be efficient. The biggest majority of the agriculture situation is subject to all these effects. So we have to bring the farmers who are working in an informal manner to join the offers that we are presenting, especially the credit guarantees, and to include them into Fintechs, and to bring them into our financing systems, and to provide support for the small farmers. We have also initiatives that were brought forward by the banking sector in order to solve this fragmentation problem. We have worked with SMEs in the same way because they started from the same point. They did not know how the banking system works, and we have built private-public partnerships that helped us establish training centers to help small farmers and to bring them together into cooperatives. And we have been able to establish those cooperatives to represent farmers and to bring guarantees on the table, and to have the same logic in the business. So we have initiatives that have not been launched yet, but they have been there for 10 years now. They are based on a scoring system for farmers in terms of solvency, and they can be helpful for the cooperation with the banking system, and these initiatives need to be developed, knowing that we have some geographical challenges, especially in Western Africa. We have another product that I believe agriculture is facing a lot, which is the inflation indexation. Nowadays, this situation is very volatile. Inflation is a day-to-day problem, and we are looking into systems that can help farmers not to be subject to these fluctuations in terms of interest rates. So I have other examples to present, but I will stop here to give the time for my colleagues.
On inflation, we're definitely going to touch on that. Formalizing the informal sector, credit guarantees. But yeah, I talk about inflation all the time on my show. Thank you for that point. Abrhame, Andreas, from the nation of Ethiopia, you also are a player in the sector that have worked with the IFC, so you can testify to the work that they're trying to do for the value chain. How does your experience differ in any way from SOWIT and Hamza's experience with respect to using agriculture to boost, using technology to boost agricultural output on the continent?
Thank you. I'm from Ethiopia, and as LERSHA promote a one-stop digital solution to smallholder farmers by utilizing digital tool and agent network. Our model is pretty much similar with what Hamza was presenting earlier. But given the context of farmers in Ethiopia, we promote a phygital model because most of the farmers lack literacy, connectivity, and phone ownership. And we built a massive agent network, more than 2,400 across 7 regions of Ethiopia. And then as Hamza was rightly mentioning, farmers are not the primary user of digital tools. And building that bridge between a farmer and the digital tool is very important. Without that, we cannot create value to farmers. In this partnership with IFC, we try to exemplify how collaboratively we can co-design financial product with financial institution. And co-developing the financial institution literally boosts confidence and trust of the financial institution and other value chain actors. And with this exercise, I think we achieved 3 things. One, we enhanced access to finance to undeserved smallholder farmers in a rural area. LERSHA as a digital platform creates digital profile of a farmer and digital profile of a farm. Leveraging such agronomy, demography, and psychometry data, we also help financial institutions to make the right decision by employing a credit assessment tool. But also, I think tailored solution is something we have achieved through this partnership with IFC, where bundling insurance to a micro loan, because as it's a small ticket loan, most of the financial institutions are not attracted to such approach, and they always claim the transaction cost is very high. But also sustainable financial ecosystem. Now we are talking about hundreds and thousands of smallholder farmers to supply a single anchor farm, if you're talking about malt barley or soya bean in Ethiopia. So for such anchor firms, handling the relationship with thousands of farmers is a bit high cost. And this model with IFC, we're demonstrating, utilizing AgTech, actually you can build a win-win relationship for all the actors involved. And 2 learning from this exercise, I think one is building trust. For most of the farmers, they don't have a touch and feel of digital solution. And then I think building that trust is very important. And with IFC, we built a proof of concept in Ethiopia. And just a couple of weeks ago, one of the banks actually promised to provide 10 times more financing for the next season. Because thank you. Because the proof of concept actually demonstrated, even if everybody talks about agriculture is risky, and there's a way to manage that. Which with this, IFC's technical support contributed a lot for that in designing a supply chain financing. And the other is data. Hamza was mentioning earlier, I mean, with data, we can actually guide people to the right direction. And we collect a lot of data. And in the Ethiopian context, most of our judgments are intuitive and we don't have data. And now we invested the last 5 years in collecting many more data. For each farmer, we collect over 137 data points. And collecting, sanitizing, and digitizing that data, now actually helping us to communicate better with financial institutions. We saw it, I mean, pretty much it is more of a similar model, but the context is different. I'm always happy to visit Morocco, and then I'm happy to see how the public sector investment helped the private sector to invest in agriculture. In our context, the farmers are smallholder farmer, and our model is a bit heavy operation. We spend a lot of time in convincing everyone, almost across the value chain, including the government people. And I think SOWIT's smart model of more of a decision support tool to help everyone to make the decision across the value chain is one of the difference. I think the other distinction factor is, so it is more of a data-driven insight model, and then we invest a lot on the value chain and financing model. But both AgTechs contribute a lot for this ecosystem.
Thank you so much. Lots of testimonies there on how the IFC is helping the players. And speaking of the IFC, Mr. MAIGA, let me come back to you. I think you gave an example early on Angola, talking about some of the challenges, but saying, the players that you worked with there are now increasing their output going down the line. But I did want to ask you, based on your experience with the pilot programs that the IFC has had across the continent, what are the pain points? What have been some of the challenges that you've encountered?
Well, for me, it was the pain point was that I didn't know anything about agriculture, really. All I knew is that it was critical for IFC and the World Bank Group to tackle the problem. And to be honest, like I said, we are trying to leverage people who have the solution. It's the AgTechs. I mean, Hamza and Abrhame knows agriculture more than I will ever know. What we can provide is first the money to build their capacity, to build their agent network if needed, to invest in their platform more, and then connect them to banks. The second thing we can bring is once they're connected to banks, there is still and there will always be some risk that the banks are not willing to take, okay? Including the full credit risk. So most of our solutions are based on risk-sharing facilities where we would guarantee up to 50 or sometimes above 50% of the portfolio generated by AgTechs companies for banks until banks are comfortable to take more risk. And then over time, we can reduce that guarantee level from 70 to 50. And I suspect if this is very profitable, banks will not even need our guarantees because it comes with a cost. And if the cost does not justify, the risk does not justify the cost, they will not take it. The pain point for us was really the learning agriculture, because our team is more financial institutions group team, but the real issue is agriculture. Our first pilot, it's fair to say, was very difficult. Riyad is here, he's laughing. First of all, we did everything that we should not have done, okay? We pushed to start the pilot 2 months after the campaign cycle, really, okay? So started late. The second thing is we didn't secure everything up front. And particularly the hard learning, one of them was about harvesting capacity. You can have the best campaign, if you cannot harvest, it's lost. And we did face that problem in the first pilot. The third one was financing off-takers. Many off-takers in that country, particularly depending on some reimbursement from government, which were delayed by 3 to 6 months. So we learned the lesson that you really need to plan and secure everything up front, from the insurance to who provide the input, to who provide the mechanized farming, to who does the offtake, all the way to the storage before you actually get farmers to engage in it. Then the second pilot was much more successful. This was in Morocco. I think Hamza mentioned it. We are doing much more pilots. And the reason why we do pilot is really not to kill the golden goose before it is born, actually, because if people see only failures at large scale, they will not engage in. But if you pilot, you show the first one was not successful, like we said, but the second two are successful, then you can have more and more people buying into the model. Our ambition as IFC is really, we don't have a balance sheet constraint, literally, because behind IFC, there's a World Bank, okay? And World Bank has massive resources that we can use as blended finance to de-risk, our investments. So whatever banks can, AgTech can produce in terms of, profile farmers and farms that banks are willing to finance, we will guarantee, whatever it is. The second thing is whatever risk banks are not willing to take, for whatever reason, we have the means to actually take it and keep it or pass it to somebody else. Like agri-insurance, of course, we don't keep the risk, but we have mechanism to pass the insurance to stronger institutions. So my message is really, we are very confident and bullish about this program. And our risk appetite, because of the importance of the issue, is, I cannot say it's without limit, but I would say we can finance billions of dollars a year in this program. But of course, we'll start gradually. Right now, I think we are at 40,000 hectares. And over time, we plan to reach 5 million, 10 million in 5 to 7 years. But really, the message is We believe in it. I think we have strong partners between SOWIT and LERSHA and others in different places. We learned our lessons in the first pilots, and now we are ready to roll out.
I think that deserves a round of applause. You learn from your pain points, and then you get success down the line. It's a great testament. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so I did want to come back to the inflation matter that Mr. TAHARI brought up earlier. Dr. Saab, so, look, I'm from Nigeria. I think of everyone sitting on this stage, we have the highest inflation in my nation, right? 33.8% headline, 39% food inflation. I think Ethiopia at one point had double digits, Egypt double digits. So how does the credit side work when you're operating in a high inflationary environment? How do you think that can be worked out?
Yeah, actually, inflation is such a tricky and complicated issue, especially that part of the inflation for our countries is imported actually from the geopolitical situation. For example, in Egypt, we depend heavily on the imports of wheat. And during the Russian-Ukrainian war, I mean, 80% of our imports from wheat comes from Ukraine, and the prices were very high. So that made the prices of food, I mean, they were escalated. And that's a big component in the index of the inflation, so it made the inflation very high as well. So if I look at inflation at both sides, credit side or looking at the farmers and the challenges that they face in order to borrow, for that period, actually, we have an initiative from the government that is going to support the farmers, again, with the cooperatives, for example, and with the Fintech. So they pay whatever the bank is charging, but the government actually subsidize the interest. So there is like a part of the budget is being directed as an initiative for agriculture, and therefore for cooperatives and for the small farmers that they are producing crops and products that needed. There are criteria for that initiative where they apply to get the initiative, which is subsidize the interest rate. From the side of consumption, because prices of food actually have increased heavily, now there is like a national strategy for establishing more and more logistics hubs and storage areas in order to have at the time where prices of food are going down, so we can actually store that in the logistics area. At the time where we have high prices of food, we can average the price, which is going to reduce the effect of inflation on the consumers. So again, it is kind of complicated because the supply side is one thing and the consumer side is another thing, but that's the time where you need to have the policies to intervene in order to make the effect of inflation a little bit less hard. Now, with, again, the decline in inflation that we are going to experience and the decline in the interest rates all over, then we expect that interest rates are going to go down. But again, we have to make this intervention in case of the increase in inflation, especially when it's coming either from inefficiencies in the market and the supply chain or the supply shocks coming from outside.
Thank you so much. Subsidizing production in order to increase outputs. A great strategy there. Mr. TAHARI, let me come back to you. So earlier you were talking about some of the best possible combinations in terms of partnerships that can take place to get those bankable projects over to the agricultural players. But what, in your view, are the challenges in getting those bankable projects financed?
Bon, concrètement.
So actually, I'm very satisfied to hear my colleagues who are speaking very knowledgeably about the banking requirements in terms of development of agriculture. But we have two sides here to take into consideration. So but the main subject here is about the small farmers and their fragmentation. I believe that the main challenge is to establish this strategic partnership between governments and credit institutions and development banks and newcomers, the fintechs. So for this partnership to take place, we have to take all the criteria into consideration, so like the inflation and the rates, the credit rates, and for agriculture and for the farmers, at a certain time we will have the problems that my colleague has mentioned. But still, we believe there are solutions. We have to stabilize the interest rates by states' incentives in order to allow the farmer to get supplies regularly and to have a value chain that is stable. So the new factor is climate change, which affects directly the farmers, like the drought seasons, etc. So we have to look for solutions to help farmers during the times of difficulty. So with regard to Fintech, I am very satisfied by the speech of my colleague who spoke about that, but this field needs to be developed further because it poses many challenges. Now we have nano credits for the telco. So all the users who have telephones, we can alter their behavior, because we can get from their phones their financial behavior, how much money they spend, how much money they receive. And this can give us an idea about the way to grant them credits. So we have to get the information about their revenues and their production, and how much energy they will need in terms of climate change. So these are points that need to be looked at in depth, and I believe that the main challenge is to establish partnership between governments who can subsidize credit rates, and especially in times of high inflation, and also credit institutions that can come into the system with Fintech.
Abraham, let me actually piggyback on that point where Mr. Tahari was talking about, governments, subsidizing in order to assist with credit rates and cost of governance and so on. From your vantage point, what's your message to policymakers in order to make the environment more conducive for players in the sector to allow tech to improve that?
Of course, understanding context is very important to provide some policy recommendation. But from the place where I come from, most of the agricultural activities are public dominated. The role of public sector is huge. So I think one of my first insights is to have a very honest private-public partnership to co-design products. In our pilot, we involved public institution to have a buy-in and blessing, and also public-oriented type of farmer unions and cooperatives to provide some of the inputs to the smallholder farmers. But I think most importantly, if we really want to scale product, such a public-private partnership is very important. And the second one is, I think, the existence of some catalytic fund. This blended type of finance is very important because, as I mentioned earlier, in our proof of concept, we demonstrated to the bank that this is doable. And even for anchor firms, we have promised for everyone, for the farmers to have more production, more income, and for anchor firms to have a raw material sourcing directly from the smallholder farmer, and also for the banks to have at least an acceptable kind of NPL. To have that, I think you need to demonstrate, and everybody wants a tangible result from that. And for you to have that feel and touch of a tangible result, this catalytic fund will give you a chance for AgTech companies at least to demonstrate it at arrival. And the last point is, I think, a clear regulatory framework on data. One of our pain points, I'm sure Paula remembers this, was to have an ID card, marriage certificate, and then the certificate of landholding for every smallholder farmer. That's a nightmare in some contexts, and that's expensive. It will make the operation very expensive. And then the public institution actually can support you by making data collection farmer-centric by other institution. And if we have that data sharing policy, AgTech companies can operate responsibly, and actually that can lower your cost of production. And lastly, thank you IFC for bringing AgTech companies to visibility and also giving this insight to financial institution. Aliou, Paula, Riyad, great jobs, and as an AgTech company, I think this is a way forward to include more farmers to the access to finance.
That's a great way to end our panel. We have a one-on-one up next. So please, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much for a great conversation. You all have been fantastic. You can go back to your seats. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, okay, sorry. Pictures very quickly. Some photographs. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Fantastic. Great conversation. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's call up Mr. Mohamed MANSSOURI, Director of the Food and Agricultural Organization's Investment Center. So, Mr. MANSSOURI, you are, FAO is also a player in the agricultural sector on the public side, on the private side. I did want to get your thoughts on what you've heard so far. Particularly, let's start, I guess, with the financing model. You can share your thoughts on how that can be impactful for the technology to get the agricultural players to, boost their output.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aruoture, and thank you, IFC colleagues, for inviting us. First of all, as FAO, we really welcome all the work that IFC is doing with the AgTechs on, risk-sharing mechanisms, and developing this area of work is critical. I think, as Hamza was putting it at the beginning, in Africa, we don't have any other choice but to develop agriculture, to increase its productivity. Productivity of African agriculture is lagging behind as compared to any other regions of the world. The yields as at least half of what they are in, all the major crops and major commodities and so on. And in order to do that, we don't have any other choice than unleashing the potential, the productivity of smallholder farmers. Okay, so I think it's not like a choice or an option for us. It's an obligation. This is the only way to make small-scale agriculture more commercial, more productive. How to do it? The smallholders need access to three major, things. They need access to inputs and technology, they need access to markets, and they need access to finance, okay? So the business models of financing need to be, financing models need to be seen in the context of those business models, and then in a more broader institutional model, okay? That institutional model needs to really get because that is the only way you can guarantee the sustainability of those models, okay, is by institutionalizing them, linking them to the policies correctly, and linking them to the farmers and to the production. So those institutional models, they need to be efficient, and I think this is what was presented here. They need to have an outreach, that is the scale of those, the outreach to farmers, to consumers, and so on. And they need also to have, the correct governance mechanisms, okay? Meaning that they need to provide for voice. I think that two of our panelists were referring to trust, and that is very, very critical. And that comes through the institutions, is whether I trust what you are, the partnership we're entering in, and so on. So for me, de-risking, it needs to be seen not only through the financial angle, but also through all the business model and the institutional angle. So you need to de-risk the ecosystem in a way. And I think this is why institutions like IFC, the World Bank, and FAO, with each entry point, working with the governments on the public side, working with the private side. But when the partnerships, we talk about public-private partnerships, but it is producer, public, private, people partnership. Okay, so it's like the 4 Ps are not only the 2 Ps in a way. And looking at it that way, that is what would guarantee in the future, you know, the sustainability of whatever model and the de-risking mechanism. So I should have started by just presenting what the AFO Investment Center is about. So we are not a financial institution. We're a technical group, a multidisciplinary group of about 200 multidisciplinary team, economists, finance, but agronomists, veterinarians, foresters, aquaculture, fishery, all the trades that FAO is about. And we work, you know, our business model is to work with financial institutions. So it's about marrying knowledge, expertise with money, okay? And that is the way you can reach scale for us as, you know, FAO, as a UN agency, a scale of impact. And we provide a number of solutions, technical solutions, working with the IFIs, you know, for our member countries, including strategic investment planning, including support to public investments, working with the World Bank, IFAD, African Development Bank. We have virtually partnerships with all the IFIs of the world. Support of private investments as well, you know, the public good elements, the landscape TA to make good private investment, and blended finance. So blended finance would link to what you were asking, as what are the de-risking financial models. And here we work really with many instruments. Our major partner is the European Commission. And we have reviewed more than 1 billion of transactions presented to 4 impact investment instruments. And actually, we look at it from the impacts or the development outcome side, okay? Each of those transactions, we contributed over the last 4 years to something like, you know, signed deals of more than 500 million. And I think it is really about looking at how to de-risk not only through guarantees, matching grants, and the financial elements, but de-risking through, you know, good knowledge, good capacity. And I think the tech here is very important because the data and the way, you know, is about making everything more efficient and about de-risking the small-scale agriculture. Let me highlight one element, which is actually that sometimes you would need also models that would de-risk the de-riskers themselves, okay? So it is not, and this is how you can look at the whole ecosystem. So for example, we work with an instrument that is called AgriFi, which is a dedicated blended finance, you know, financed by the EU for small-scale agriculture. And it is focused on basically bringing companies, SMEs, to the to be investment ready. Okay, so like this missing middle and so on. But for DFIs to do that, they would need themselves, you know, a de-risking mechanism, and we work on that as well.
We are out of time, but I have to squeeze out one more question for you, and that was the infrastructure side. In order to make the technology to work, can you quickly touch on that as we round up?
Yeah, I think that this is really, many colleagues were referring to it, but to develop value chains and to, you know, boost productivity, you need huge investments in infrastructure, okay? Whether it is, you know, irrigation more efficient and climate resilient irrigation systems, you know, throughout the agri-food chain, agri-food logistics, you know, wholesale markets, slaughterhouses, you know, and I think we are really under you know, developed in Africa. So there are also here huge opportunities for the financial sector on the public side to really develop that. But maybe let me emphasize the flip side of that, which is something that colleagues were referring to it, which is the investment in the things that we don't see, okay? Which is the human capital, the organizations, the institutions, the social capital. And honestly, this is key, because you cannot have aggregation without social capital, okay? You cannot, so there are some references to cooperatives and the business models themselves, but I think the human capital, and I think Hamza and Abrhame were referring to the illiteracy rates in the farming communities, but please look forward, look at the generation that is coming, the farmers that we would like to see in the future. And let's train them, let's get them the capacity. We cannot keep going with illiterate, farmers. And I think the solutions we are bringing here are transition solutions. So whatever we do, we have to look at it in a very evolutive way to accompany the transformation of the agri-food systems. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. MANSSOURI of the FAO, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our panel. Thank you so much for your time. And look, we still have a whole lot more here at the Africa Financial Industry Summit. Lots of more panels taking place, so do enjoy yourselves. Thank you so much.